Hello again in this video clip series, my journey to God in the very secularized world. We've been talking about the history of communion in the hand. And here Bishop Athanasius Schneider was asked a few questions. The question was, is the church going in the opposite direction from where you are going? And Bishop Schneider replied, it seems that the majority of the clergy and the bishops are content with this modern use of communion in the hand and don't realize the real dangers connected with such a practice. For me, this is incredible. How is it possible when Jesus is present in the little hosts? A priest and a bishop should say, I have to do something, at least to gradually reduce this. All that I can do, I have to do. Unfortunately, though, there are members of the clergy who are making propaganda of the modern use of communion in the hand and sometimes prohibiting receiving communion on the tongue and kneeling. There are even priests who are discriminating against those who kneel for Holy Communion. This is very, very sad. Another question he was asked, some people would say you are worrying about unimportant things. What about the poor? Bishop Schneider replied, this is erroneous. The first commandment which Christ gave us was to adore God alone. Liturgy is not a meeting of friends. It is our first task to adore and glorify God in the liturgy and also in our manner of life. From a true adoration and love of God grows love for the poor and our neighbor. It is a consequence. The saints in 2,000 years of the church, all those saints who were so prayerful and pious, they were all extremely merciful to the poor and to care for the poor. In these two commandments are all the others. But the first commandment is to love and adore God. And that is realized in a supreme manner in the sacred liturgy. When you are neglecting the first commandment, then you are not doing the will of God. You are pleasing yourself. Happiness is to fulfill the will of God, not to fulfill our will. During a trip to England, the Soviet-born bishop said the church today is experiencing tremendous confusion. Although, he says, talk of change is mainly coming from the anti-Christian media, he sees clergy and lay Catholics collaborating with what he calls the new paganism. Bishop Schneider is particularly critical of the idea that these changes should be made so as to be merciful to those currently barred from receiving the sacraments. This is a kind of sophism, he said. This is not mercy, this is cruel. He suggested this was a false concept of mercy, saying it's comparable to a doctor who gives a diabetic patient sugar, although he knows it will kill him. Such critics may assert that Bishop Schneider's concern over Holy Communion is like worrying over the number of angels on a pinhead. But the bishop insists that treatment of the Eucharist is at the very heart of the crisis. The Eucharist is at the heart of the church, he said. When the heart is weak, the whole body is weak. He urged that receiving communion in the hand He argued that receiving communion in the hand contributes gradually to the loss of the Catholic faith in the real presence and in transubstantiation. I would like to offer here also now a few various writings of the saints, in particular regarding the humility of the saints before the Eucharist, in contrast with our presumption today in the modern church. Here's a paragraph from the diary of St. Faustina. She wrote, often during Mass, I see the Lord in my soul. I feel His presence, which pervades my being. I sense His divine gaze. I have long talks with Him without saying a word. I know what His divine heart desires, and I always do what will please him the most. I love him to distraction, and I feel that I am being loved by God. At those times when I meet with God deep within myself, I feel so happy that I do not know how to express it. Such moments are short, for the soul could not bear it for long, as separation from the body would be inevitable. Though these moments are very short, their power, however, which is transmitted to the soul, remains with it for a very long time. Without the least effort, I experience a profound recollection which then envelopes me, and it does not diminish even if I talk with people, nor does it interfere with the performance of my duties. I feel the constant presence of God without any effort of my soul. I know that I am united with him as closely as a drop of water is united with the bottomless ocean. This is in the diary number 411. St. Teresa, Little Flower, she wrote, she says, I am just a speck of dust, but I want to make my dwelling in the shadow of the sanctuary with the prisoner of love, which he called Jesus in the tabernacle. My soul longs for the host. I love him and want nothing more. It is a hidden God who attracts me. I am the Adam of Jesus Christ. Another paragraph from the diary of St. Faustina, she wrote, on several occasions I have learned how some religious defend their own glory under the pretext of being concerned for the glory of God, whereas it is not a question of the glory of God, but of glory of self. Oh Jesus, how painful this has been for me. What secrets the day of your judgment will bring to light. How can one steal God's gifts? That's diary number 1149. In the little booklet of St. Lucifer de Montfort called The Secret of Mary, paragraph number 37, he wrote, consecrating ourselves in this way to Jesus of Mary implies placing our good deeds in Mary's hands. Now, although these deeds may appear good to us, they are often defective and not worthy to be considered and accepted by God, before whom even the stars lack brightness. Let us pray then to our dear Mother and Queen that having accepted our poor present, she may purify it, sanctify it, beautify it, and so make it worthy of God. Any good our soul could produce is of less value to God our Father in winning his friendship and favor than a worm-eaten apple would be in the sight of a king when presented by a poor peasant to his royal master as payment for the rent to his farm. But what would this peasant do if he were wise and if he enjoyed the esteem of the queen? Would he not present his apple first to her, and would she not, out of kindness to the poor man and out of respect for the king, remove from the apple all that was maggoty and spoiled, place it on a golden dish, and surround it with flowers? Could the king then refuse the apple? Would he not accept it most willingly from the hands of his queen, who showed such loving concern for that poor man? If you wish to present something to God, no matter how small it may be, says St. Bernard, place it in the hands of Mary to ensure its certain acceptance. That's a very nice paragraph in that book. You might all, yeah. Blessed Francesco, after having received the Eucharist from the angel of Fatima, he understood the greatness of the reality of Jesus present in the Eucharist, and he spent 3 hours every day before the tabernacle until his death about a year later. The Holy Father, John Paul II, said in his homily at the Sanctuary of Our Lady of the Rosary at Fatima, Saturday, May 13, 2000, he said, later Francesco, one of the 3 privileged children, exclaimed, We were burning in that light which is God, and we were not consumed. What is God like? It is impossible to say. In fact, we will never be able to tell people. God, a light that burns without consuming. Moses had the same experience when he saw God in the burning bush. He heard God say that he was concerned about the slavery of his people and had decided to deliver them through him. I will be with you, he said. Those who welcome this presence become the dwelling place and consequently a burning bush of the Most High. You might visit also an article that I wrote called The Marvelous Value of the Holy Mass. May God bless you and Mary guide you.